Welcome to another edition of the Gold Nose Podcast. I am your host, Gregory McCoy. This podcast is by a fan for fans. I am not a journalist. I am not a reporter. I am not an insider. I do not work for a website. The majority of my content comes from me, in my opinion. Other information comes from the internet. So I felt like the Duquesne game was kind of like a trap game. I didn't know what kind of Florida State team we were going to get. But it's nice that those guys took care of business. I mean, we can critique the game, whatever. We won the game. We did what we were supposed to do. So now you have a LSU team that is supremely talented. Don't let the 6-7 record fool you. This LSU team had 10 players drafted in April's draft. Okay, so the talent, I think it was more coaching than talent. And the coach they got now, the guy from Notre Dame, I forget his name. You guys know how I am with names. I mean, he's a very good coach, and he likes to run the football. LSU has a very good running back. They have very good wide receivers. They have a very good offensive line. They have some very good tight ends. The only question is at quarterback. They've kind of had a audition at quarterback. They got the dude from Arizona State, Daniels. So defensively, come on. They got great talent in the secondary. They got some great linebackers. I mean, they are very talented. And if Florida State does not go into this game with a supreme times infinity mindset, effort, focus, they're going to get blowed off this field, man. Because I'm just saying, the score in that Duquesne game, like I said in my instant reaction a few days ago, if that Duquesne team was playing the 2013 national championship team, they would have had 50 on those guys at halftime. I think they probably would have had 28 on them in the first quarter. So, I mean, that's the difference. You know, so I don't know what Norvell needs to do to get these guys to lock in and so they don't get embarrassed on national TV this coming weekend. But you in his presser, he said it's a nationally televised game. You don't need a motivational. I mean, I disagree with that. You know, you have to let these guys know, you know, what you did against Duquesne, those holes ain't going to be there, bro. Running wide open down the field, that's not going to be there, bro. Okay, they're going to make you earn everything that you get. And LSU is one of the better conditioned teams in the country. LSU is not hurting for nothing. Facilities, players, nothing. Okay? We're talking one of the top programs in terms of money in this country. I mean, when you can go snag away the head coach at Notre Dame and pay him, I think he got like $70 million. I mean, you know, you gonna be in business. And I just Florida State did what I wanted them to do in that game, which was just play basic football. I didn't like some of the tunnel screen stuff. I thought they didn't give Cam McDonald enough opportunities. I don't know if he's injured or whatever. But just, you're not going to run for 400 yards against LSU. You're just not. The offensive line played well, but that type of effort is not going to get you a win over LSU. Okay? You just need a all-out, balls to the wall effort to beat this team, because they, pound for pound, they have better athletes than us. And it hurts to say that, but, I'm not going to sit here and be some kind of delusional Florida State football fan. They have better athletes than us, period. They're better conditioned than us. So the only thing that we can bring to the table that's going to be a difference in this game is our effort. Our effort has to be greater than theirs. And particularly on the offensive line and defensive line. That's how we're going to win this game. And I know some people are going to be mad at me when I say this. I don't think Florida State is going to win this game. I think it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 31-17, 38-17, something like that. I just don't think that we match with them in the trenches. I just don't feel like we do. Now, the only way we can possibly win this game is if whoever they go with at quarterback just stinks it up. That's really, and special teams. I feel like you need to put Michael Pittman at kickoff and punt returner. I feel like he can be the difference. He can be a difference maker. Their quarterback has to stink it up, and we have to be very good in the return game. Punt return, kickoff return. I don't see us just lining up and running the ball down their throat. Too good on defense. Their offensive line is huge. Their offensive line is always huge. They've got some very physical running backs like they always do. So this is going to be a different type of effort. I mean, you basically just went out there and coasted on Duquesne and you put up 47. Everybody on this team, is going to have to go Super Saiyan blue to get this win, man. And make no mistake about it, I want to win. I want Florida State to win. But you just got to be realistic. LSU has better talent. We might have the better quarterback slightly. Okay? And special teams. Special teams can be a difference. Brian Kelly, I messed up his name earlier in the podcast. Brian Kelly is a great coach. So he's gonna have these boys ready to play. And it's just a matter of Brian Kelly knows what Mike Norvell likes to do. He got a first-hand look at it last season. You know what Brian Kelly is going to do. He's going to run the football. Make no mistake about it. He's going to test that defense. I like what Deloach did in the game against Duquesne. I like what Bethune did in that game. I like what DJ Lundy did. DJ Lundy looked very fast at 239. He looked very fast. I didn't like Gaynor. I don't know if Omar Graham got in the game. I like your boy Gant. He looked pretty good. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out against LSU, man. Everything that you saw in the Duquesne game, you have to take with a grain of salt. There was a lot of positives in this game. But, you can't really sit here and say, okay, we're back. You can't do that. the effort against Duquesne to me was not there. You basically, you had more talent than those guys. You had better athletes than those guys, and that's why you dominated that game. I feel like LSU is going to come out and punch you in the mouth next week. I don't feel like Florida State is going to come out and punch them in the mouth, because I felt like we was going to blow Duquesne out, but what I was looking for was the effort. What I was looking for was the intensity, the tenacity, the ferocity of the team. And I just didn't see it. That didn't look like a back in the day Florida State team out there. And that's coaching. You know, getting your team ready to play is coaching. And that's why I feel like we're not going to beat LSU. That's just my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. But I feel like, you know, Brian Kelly is going to have these guys amped up and ready to play. And I just don't see from the effort. Maybe they were looking ahead a little bit. I don't know. But I just don't, from what I seen in the Duquesne game, I just don't feel like that effort is going to get beat LSU. Like I said earlier in this podcast, the final score should have been the score at halftime. And that would have told me something like, okay, these guys, they're mentally, they're there. All right, mentally they're there, but you go into the league and you go into the halftime with a 23-0 lead, and I was just like, I just don't feel, you know what I'm saying? If you've been a Florida State fan long enough, you know when you're just like, okay, you know, that first half against Clemson in 2013, you was like, okay, they're not beating us tonight. We're locked in. Or not, you don't even have to go that far. You could just say the Pittsburgh game in 2013. And I was just like, okay, Winston is locked in. He's going to be a bad boy. Okay? And not to compare Winston and Travis, just examples of how intense though that team was versus this team. And I'm not saying that we have to be like, this team has to be like the 2013 team in terms of talent, but you can be in terms of effort, right? And I just feel like, that, you know, I don't know what Mike Norvell is preaching right now. Because if I'm the head coach and I'm in that locker room, I'm like, man, we got to get hype. We got to get our goddamn effort up. We need to punch people in the fucking mouth. Excuse my French. I usually don't cuss on this podcast, but, you know, that's how I would be. Like, you know, our effort, to me, just wasn't there. And how do you get these guys up? He in the press conference saying there's no motivational speech. And he did, well, yes, it is. Okay? You whatever you did in the Notre Dame game last year, it has to be times 10 this year for you to get the win. And you have to make better coaching decisions. Okay? I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but you got to be damn near close to perfect. You know, for the life of me, I can't understand how this team thinks that they have arrived after playing Duquesne. You go into that type of game expecting to win, to dominate, and you don't come out of that game being full of yourself. Because I promise you, LSU is going to come out and they're going to be physical. They're going to be physical. And if you're not ready to meet that physicality and, give it right back to them, this is not going to be a fun game to watch. It's not. It's just not, as a Florida State fan. So I just, like I said earlier in this podcast, I just looking at this team, that team did not look like a well-conditioned team to me. It wasn't like the cramping situation from, a few years ago. At least the players were hydrated, but, it just didn't look like a well-conditioned team to me. And you won that game, again, just you have better players than Duquesne. That's how you won that game. And nothing from Duquesne, okay, nothing from Duquesne is going to carry over to LSU. It's very imperative that y'all know that. The gaping Grand Canyon holes that you were running through are not going to be there. Wide receivers running wide open down the field, not going to be there. Jordan Travis having all day to throw, not going to be there. So, when you see things on the internet, best running back trio in, college football after Duquesne, you're asking that question after Duquesne. Now, if they come out here against LSU, one of the premier SEC teams, and run for 300-400 yards, okay. We can have that conversation. But this LSU, this type of team is the litmus test to see where you are. You measure yourself against teams like this. They're up and down. They have, if not the same, better than what you have at every position, with the exception of maybe quarterback. I would say Jaden Daniels and Jordan Travis are a wash. If Jaden Daniels is the starter, I'm thinking it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I just think he gives you more from a quarterback standpoint. Okay, true freshman Jaden Daniels beat you in the Sun Bowl. And now you're going to see him again. I'm not sitting here saying he's the best quarterback in the country, but he's not the worst. He's an upper echelon quarterback in college football. He's top 30, in my opinion. He's top 30. And he's definitely a guy that can pick this this Florida State defense apart if we can't get to him. So, this type of win right here, I wouldn't even give it 24 hours. I say immediately when the game is done, you forget about this game. Coaches, you go look at the film. You tell these guys what their mistakes were, correct the mistakes. But this is not a celebratory win here. Okay, we snapped the season opening losing streak. Great. But, you're selling yourself short if you're walking around with your chest stuck out after beating a lower echelon FCS team. So, just football is won and lost in the trenches, and this is the game. This type of game is gonna be on display live on national TV. So I promise you these guys going to come to play. I promise you LSU is coming to play. because they got something to prove after going 6-7. They're going to try to make a statement. And if you got your head up, you know where, they gonna put a 50 burger on you. So, I mean, obviously Mike Norvell's gonna try to run the football, and I applaud that. But I don't know if you're gonna be able to run against that front seven. I don't know if you're gonna be able to run against that front seven. You know. But I like the combination of offensive linemen they put out there. I thought that I thought Bless Harris was gonna play guard, and he was gonna move the dude. I think his name is Turntine. I probably got that wrong, but I thought he was gonna play tackle. But either way, Gibbons, Washington, and Scott. I gotta see him against LSU, man. I gotta see him against a SEC team. This game is gonna be, is gonna we've either done good in the transfer portal, or we just stink. And I'm hoping we did well. I know this podcast sounds like Debbie Downer, but believe me, guys, I want this team to be successful. I just want them to have a sense of urgency when they go into this game, like they did against Notre Dame. I didn't expect them to come out there and play like that. So it was, I was in my bedroom screaming and in joy last season when they came out there and played like that. Because I predicted they would lose. I didn't predict it would be, a 3-point game. I thought it was going to be, I don't know what I said back then, 38-17 or something like that. So, it's going to take that type of effort. But you don't have Jermaine Johnson leading the way, right? You got some guys on offense. All right, but Notre Dame last year, they're not on the level of a LSU in terms of offensive line and defensive line. So you're gonna find out like very early on, okay, we can play with these guys or we can't. You're gonna see that. When I watch football on TV, when it comes to my team, I look at offensive line and defensive line play. And too often, last season, our offensive line got dominated. And we can say injury this, injury that. But coming into this season, it's just no excuses. You got a bevy of guys. And you got a whole bunch of young guys on the come up. Or Willis, Armella, just to name a few. It's a lot more. So, it's this game. I want this win so bad, man. But like I said, I just don't know what team is going to show up. You can't go out there with that. Side note, doesn't the running back number 3 remind you of Wilder, man? He runs like Wilder. And I wanted to say that earlier on in the podcast, but I wasn't thinking about it. And Trayshawn Ward reminds me of Freeman. That's crazy. The dude number 3, I can't think of his name, but he run Trey Benson, right? Is that his name? I think his last name is Benson. He reminds me of Wilder. Probably not as big as Wilder, but he's very physical. You're not going to be breaking those tackles against LSU. I hope you do. Now, don't get me wrong. I hope you do break those tackles against LSU. Don't get it wrong now, but I just feel like, you can't go into this game thinking what worked against Duquesne is going to work against LSU. Now, of course, you're going to have to run the football. But, those Grand Canyon holes ain't going to be there, man. So Brian Kelly wants to play gamesmanship with his quarterback situation. I really don't care. I mean, I pretty much came into this season thinking Jaden Daniels was going to be the guy. And I nothing has changed on that. Jaden Daniels is going to be the guy. This LSU is not a quarterback dependent team. Okay? Now, their record last year hurt them because of their quarterback. But if they go with Jaden Daniels, he's not going to hurt you. Okay? But he's a good quarterback, and he prefers to throw rather than run, but he can run. So, Florida State got their hands full. This is a grown man type game. And LSU is going to test you, man. So, it's just a matter of what are the coaches doing to motivate these guys? I'd taken the approach of, well, there's no motivational stuff needed this week. That's not the right approach, in my opinion. This game, like the Notre Dame game of last year, the greatest teacher is experience. And when we lost to Notre Dame, we went on that skid. And I could see the same thing happen with this LSU game. Especially if they come out here, lackadaisical. The same thing can happen. But a win over this program, a FSU win over LSU, that could change the trajectory of our program. It really could. It could give us confidence to go play anybody and dominate anybody left on this schedule. So, I mean, it's just what team is going to show up. On offense, and another thing, on offense, I would like them to use Micah Pittman like San Fran uses Deebo Samuel. They look like a similar type football player to me. So, I think it would behoove Norvell to look at a couple of plays from San Francisco, how they use Deebo, and use him that way. I mean, he's an X factor. He's a chess piece that you can move all over the board and get big plays from. You can line him up. You can put him on the reverse. You can line him up in the backfield. He can go deep. He's great in the return game. But I think, like I said earlier in this podcast, I think you really need to consider letting him do all the return duties. He's the only one from the Duquesne game. He's the only guy that I felt like, and he's the only guy that I've seen in the last several years that goes for those punts with confidence. And, you're not just going to line up and dominate LSU. You're going to have to do some trickeration. That's just the way it is. We're not that type team. So, like I said before, man, what FSU team is going to show up this week? Or, I'm sorry, Sunday. What FSU team is going to show up on Sunday? It's going to be really interesting to see. This is a game that can elevate a coach, separate a coach, or you can just be labeled, just another guy. And I just can't wait to see what happens in this game, man. So with that being said, that concludes this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's available on YouTube. It's available on all podcast platforms. I appreciate each and every person that listens. And that's it. As always, go Noles.